What's up, Porsche fanatics? Will here with Rennthusiast, my YouTube channel centering on air-cooled Porsche 911 ownership experience. And if you are here because you are looking to learn more about the Porsche 964, then I've got great news for you. I'm going to give you some detailed insight into my 964. I'm going to give you some exterior walk-around footage and talk to you a little bit about the design, let you really take that in. I'm going to compare the 964 to my 86 911 behind me so you can see the design iteration and the changes that Porsche made over the years. Then I'm going to take you on a drive in the car and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the driving experience is like. I'll share with you what is good about it. I'll share with you a couple things that maybe I don't love as much. Before I get into that though, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel. This is the kind of thing I do. I give viewers what I call a driver's eye view of what it's like to live with, own, love, and sometimes hate these classic Porsche 911s. And I not only share my personal ownership experience, but I interview other 911 owners and I cover events and really anything that these cars throw at me. So if you are a classic Porsche person, then please hit that subscribe button. I'd also like to invite you to come join my Facebook group, Rennthusiast Air-Cooled Porsche Fans. That group has grown. There's a lot of energy in there. You've got Porsche enthusiasts sharing pictures and insight and answering each other's questions and passing along auction results and all that kind of stuff we like to do. It's happening in that group. So if Facebook's your thing, come check it out, Rennthusiast Air-Cooled Porsche Fans. I now want to give you a little background on this 92 964, just kind of help you understand how long I've had it and maybe a couple of the specs on it, and then we'll jump into the real content that you're looking for. So I have owned this 1992 Porsche 964 C2 coupe for about a year. It is a manual and it ticked a lot of the boxes for what I was looking for when I picked this car up. I knew that I wanted a 964 for quite some time. I had never candidly driven one. I had owned my 993 for a while and my 86 for a while. I knew that in seeing other 964s around at rallies and so forth, I just found them so captivating. I loved the really unique color combinations that were available at the time. And of course, I just loved the lines of the car as well. And so I was looking for a 964 alongside an early car, a hot rod, and this one just presented itself to me. I wanted a later year car, so this is a 92. They tend to be more sought after and more valuable. They don't have the head gasket issue that the earlier cars have. I certainly wanted a coupe. I knew I wanted manual, but really kind of the crown jewel component of this particular example was the color combination. The Amazon green is just so unique looking and it's so stunning in person. It changes color in the light. It goes from blue to green. And then of course with that light gray interior, it really contrasted in a way that I was like, man, I couldn't believe that the car was available. And so I bought the car, bought it remotely, had it shipped to my home state, and got into the sorting process. It was a little more robust sorting process than I would have possibly liked, but we love these cars and it's worth it. And if you are an owner, then I think you'll agree that they all need something, some more than others. So bottom line, 1 year later, I got this car sitting roadworthy. In today's video, I am going to take you out in it and share with you what it's like. So let's jump now to the walk around footage. I thought it would be interesting to have the other two cars back there in the back as we do the walk around here of this 964, just to give you a comparison for the way it was before the 964 as well as the way it was design-wise after the 964. A couple things, sorry about the shadow there. This is just the way it is. That's the first thing. Second thing, these cars are dirty. They get driven and it's also pollen season here in North Carolina. So let me get into it. This car for me, I'm just going to go ahead and say I think it is the most beautiful air-cooled 911. The headlights are so iconic. While I think the 993 is definitely a beautiful design, I just feel like the 964 pulled forward, a key feature that we all think about when we think classic 911. At least I do. So, if you're looking at a 964, I don't think that view can be beat. I do have a very common, or at least what I've seen on a lot of 964s, this kind of bent crossbar. I haven't really looked into fixing it. I don't care that much. Also, and I don't know if I can grab this with this camera, but In the case of my bumper, it's been curbed quite a bit. So, you know, the car's been driven, which is fine. My intention is to drive as well. I, just as an item of interest, did have, first of all, I had this paint corrected a few weeks back. And it really did enhance my love for the car. So if you pick one of these cars up, I would strongly recommend taking a look at having it paint corrected, even if you're going to drive it. It really brings the paint alive. I touched on this earlier in the video. You know, the killer colors these 964s were offered in are, at least for me, one of the most attractive features. So why not bring it alive with paint correction? So that said, I wrapped or had PPF put on the front end. So starting here all the way down, I didn't get the cowl done right there, but I got it all done all the way down. The shop that I had do the work kind of pushed back because my paint is not perfect by any means. And so really I encased, you know, stone chips filled in with, you know, paint, touch-up paint. But where I landed after talking with a couple friends about this is like, this is a preservation wrap, I'll call it, or preservation PPF. I'm going to drive the car and I just don't want the paint to get any worse. So I figured, hey, for whatever it cost me, it was worth doing. Let's talk about design now. I mean, for my money, I just feel like that is such a good look. They clearly improved the way they treated the front bumper. I think that's an outstanding design. I'm going to take you over here. You can take a look at the profile of the impact bumper just to kind of see where they were. We all know the story of the requirements, the safety requirements, and why Porsche had to do this. And certainly that, you know, the impact bumper design is unmistakable. And, you know, we all love it for what it is, period, correct. But I just feel like, I mean, that's second to none, you know. Let's go back here. The way I have them parked, I think it's going to interfere just a little bit. You know, my favorite angle of the 964 is back here. Don't know about yours. I think they did such a great job with that rear bumper too. So let's go back here. Take a look. I mean, this one doesn't offend me as much as the front. And I don't know if offend's the right word, but I could almost get down with this design. I mean, it looks good for what it is. What I find interesting too, and if anybody knows whether this is true or not, let me know, but like this section here looks basically identical. So I mean, if they use the same sheet metal or design or whatever, I would love to hear your knowledge on that. You know, and then of course, just to kind of continue to compare, you got a different look on that 993. Of course. So that's the exterior here. I do think, I won't deploy this, I think this spoiler, when it's deployed, looks so much better than this one. I disabled this spoiler, actually, and took a lot of heat from it, or took a lot of heat for doing that, so that does not come up automatically any longer. But I think this, when this is deployed, when you're out following one of these cars, I think it looks so good. I decided to keep rear wiper on this car. This one was deleted because the previous owner put an upgraded AC condenser in here and it wouldn't allow for the motor to fit. And then I just removed this one just for the sake of modding. So whatever. Let's jump in here. Let's look at the interior a little bit. So, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but you know, the same general idea, the same shape as the cars before it, but they did try to make it a little bit more modern. This setup is a little bit more finished than in the 86. Fuel, oil level, oil temp, oil pressure, tach, of course, speed, clock. We all love the clock. I went with a Continental head unit in here. It has a nice period correct look, and it streams quite nicely. The HVAC system, This is a major difference here between the 964 and the 993, the way this console is set up. So you can manually override your spoiler here, and the sunroof control, and I'll take you over there in a second, the 993 is up here. The 964, it's right here, which is reminiscent of the G-body cars before it. Yes, I know this glove box door is irritating. We've done the best we can to fix that. So let's go take a peek at the console, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about that interior, and then we'll do the driving component here. So as I told you, on the 993, sunroof is here, the spoiler function is there. All right, a strong reason that I was so psyched up about this example becoming available, and maybe you feel the same way, was this light interior. Although these pieces here have yellowed over the years, I got to figure out what to do with that because it definitely doesn't work well with the interior. But let's go around this side. I think part of the charm, the 964, of course, as I said before, is the color combination. But here's the deal. And what I'm getting ready to share with you is very, very obvious, but if you're looking at pursuing a 964 and you've got this light interior, you know, a linen or a light gray on your mind, be prepared for it to show dirt. So I have had this carpet shampooed, and it really, really did help. You should have seen how much dirt came out of it. I did it myself at home, and man, oh man, it was shocking how much black stuff this carpet could hide. And this looks a lot better, but I mean, anything will show up on here. And I mean, the car's many, many years old too. Like, you're not going to get it back to original shape, but you see it. Pardon that GoPro there. So it looks a lot better than it did, but if you're thinking you want this interior and, you know, you're very, very particular, I would urge you to think through what it's going to be like for you to own that. Before we jump into the driving footage, I thought it might be mildly entertaining for you to check out the engines in each of these cars. This one's very, very clean. I did have it cleaned when I did the paint correction, or had the paint correction done, and I also had my fan repainted. It's almost like a Weiss gold. Thought that looked good. And then this guy here, it's funny, as I'm shooting the video, it's kind of like the 993 is showing its age a little bit. I mean, of course, and I drive the hell out of this car, and I don't keep it super clean, but yeah, looking a little dirty. This guy, not so much. And then this one is okay. So let me now just ask you in the comments to tell me, like, which generation, design-wise, is your favorite? Old school G-body, 964, or let's see if we can't get the light to behave a little bit better, the 993. All right, let's jump in the car, go for a ride. Okay, here we are, guys, inside of my 92 964 C2 coupe, and I am on the side of the road here at one of my favorite little driving loops near my house, and I thought what I would do is just kind of take you through what it's like driving one of these wonderful, wonderful cars. I think back to when I picked this car up from the transfer truck about a year ago now. I jumped in the car, and the first thing that struck me was it was this really interesting mashup between my 993 and my 86 G-body coupe. And here's what I mean. When I saw the interior, it was just, you know, obviously it was very much like the 993. There are a couple subtle differences that I'll get into, but overall, the look, the feel, the layout very much matches the 993. However, when you look out the windscreen, you see that the upright lights are there, which are not there in the 993. So it's very reminiscent of the G-body. So, you know, for me and my unique ownership perspective, that was the first thing that struck me. It was very, very entertaining. So, you know, if you're a first-time 964 buyer, if you're watching this video just to kind of get a sense and a feel for it, maybe that won't make a lot of sense unless you have experience driving a 993 and a G-body. So that was the first thing that struck me, and I thought I would share that with you guys. So now let's jump into the driving portion. This might just sound a little bit cheesy or whatever, but if you're an air-cooled owner, you know that as soon as you jump in to one of these cars and start to drive it, you just immediately feel the cool
factor coming alive. These cars are iconic. They are definitely sought after, and if you've driven one, then you know why. You jump into the cockpit, you know, you got this horizontal dash. It doesn't really have a lot of frills on it. It's very, very driver focused. With the engine behind you, it is just a unique driving experience. This 964 is set up with a couple of modifications on it. First of all, it is running KWV3 coilover suspension. I have not been as impressed with these coilovers as I have been with the ones I put on my 993. Those are Bilstein PSS 10s, and so if you're an air-cooled geek, specifically a 993 geek or a 964 geek, you'll know what I'm talking about. So the KWV3s on this car, I guess they're they're better than stock. I can't speak to it in terms of like what it's like to drive the stock suspension, but these coilovers, they feel planted, but not quite as planted as the PSS 10s on the 993. I guess they do the job. Not once have I felt like it's out of control. I mean, I haven't driven the car at banshee speeds yet, but you know, I've pushed it and the whole time I've felt comfortable, but it just doesn't feel like the car is absorbing road imperfections at all four corners like the PSS 10s do. You know, from a speed and power perspective, the car feels more than adequate for what it is. I mean, you know, if you're an air-cooled owner or if you've driven one of these cars, you know you're not going to be bowled over by the power that the car puts out, which frankly, that's kind of what I enjoy about them. You know, I did own a 997.1 turbo for a period of time. I'll put a card up to the video that I did on that car in which I talk about why I sold it. But, you know, there's something about these classic 911s where, you know, you can push on them, you can wind the engine out, and you're just not doing stupid speeds. And that's this 964 is that way. You can hit the red line, you can make it scream, you can enjoy the engine noise without breaking the law to such an extent where you're gonna get busted hard with some handcuffs if you get pulled over. So, you know, from a power perspective, the car puts down what you need. I am running, by the way, a Steve Wong chip on this car. I have been impressed with what the Steve Wong chip did in my 993. It improves throttle response down low. So that's another mod that I have done to the car. It's not a big deal, it's not intrusive, and certainly it's reversible. Along those lines, with regards to modifications and this 964, this car gets up under the pedal. The car, when it arrived, had a lightweight flywheel, and just as an aside, the previous owner had tinted the windows and painted the wheels black. Those items were undone before I got my hands on the car, but when the car showed up, it did have the lightweight flywheel. As part of my transmission rebuild, as part of my sorting process, I decided to go back to the dual mass factory flywheel. I've had some guys reach out to me and say, like, why did you do that? You know, you've kind of detracted from the performance of the lightweight flywheel. I want to touch on my vision particularly for this example. I feel like with this Amazon green metallic exterior, the clean condition of the car, the relatively lower mileage, this killer interior, the car, for me, needs to be kind of a stock plus. So the mods that I've chosen for this 964, Steve Wong chip, coilover suspension, and by the way, it has the goldenrod in the shifter assembly. That's probably all I'm willing to do in terms of modifying the car, because I just don't want to take it into too rowdy of a direction. By the way, the car also had an interesting exhaust setup when it showed up. I have taken the exhaust back to mostly stock. I've got a primary cat delete, but outside of that, the exhaust is stock. So if you are into these cars, I'd love to hear your perspective on mod versus stock. Would you take your 964 in a rowdier direction, or would you want to kind of keep it mostly stock? I've elected to keep this one mostly stock. So I've touched on the power for you. The handling, it's precise, it feels confidence inspiring. You know, overall, the car does have the package I think that I would be looking for spirited back road driving. My 993 is rowdier, it's louder, you know, the suspension is tighter, it feels lighter weight. I've swapped out the seats and done some other things. Let me wind this out here. So thinking about comfort, it is certainly adequate. Out of the 3 air-cooled Porsches that I own, the 86, the 993, and the 964, this one is certainly the most comfortable. In a way, it almost feels like a touring car. The factory seats, as usual, are comfortable, and this car does have AC. The 993, the AC in that one doesn't work very well. So, you know, from a comfort perspective, I could spend many, many hours in this car over the course of a weekend and not complain. You know, I don't think I would have back pain or anything like that. And so, you know, if you're sitting there and you're watching this video because you're trying to decide, hey, do I want to pursue a 964, but I'm worried about the comfort factor, you know, I don't think you need to worry about that. The car is definitely comfortable. Something else I'd like to touch on is really a question that I'm asked often, because I am so lucky enough to have 3 of these classic Porsches. Guys ask me, hey, which one is your favorite? And, you know, that's a tough question because they're all so good. This 964 is fantastic for what it is. It just has a really cool vibe to it. The power's there, the handling is there. So, you know, I love this car. The 86 feels much more mechanical, much more analog. And if I'm in that mood, if I want to feel like, hey, it's a throwback to the 80s, it's a throwback to the early cars, then, you know, that 86 might be my favorite. The 993 is another, that one's very, very special to me. It was my first air-cooled Porsche, so I love that one. But, you know, my point is this, is the answer to the question of which 911 do I love the most, quite frankly, I always say it's the last one I drove, because each of them are just so good. So I don't know if this has helped you guys kind of understand a little bit more about the 964. In the description below, I'm going to put some links to maybe some other more like history-based information on the 964, or maybe some breakdowns of the different models, different years, and all that kind of stuff. You know, in the meantime, I hope you've gotten something out of this. Thumbs up on this car. It's taken a year to get it where it is today, but I am definitely pleased, and I think this one is a keeper. So if this is the kind of thing you like, please subscribe to my channel. I cover air-cooled Porsche 911 ownership experience in events and owner interviews, and you know, the trials and tribulations and joys of owning these cars. So if that's your kind of thing, please subscribe. With all that being said, I'm out of here. If you're still with me, thanks for watching.